Hello everyone, time for another video on this channel in which we're going to talk about my new lens I got. So if you watched my last video about mountain photography, you saw that I was a bit annoyed when I was on top of the mountain and couldn't zoom in just enough. And yeah, to be honest, I've been saving up to get a proper zoom lens for a few years now. And yeah, finally I got it, which is the Canon RF 100-500 lens. It's pretty expensive, that's why it took me so long to get it, but yeah, finally I invested the money, and what I want to do in this video, I want to show you how I test it. So I just got it, it's very expensive, and I want to make sure it performs exceptionally, which means I want to check if it's decentered in any way. If you've seen in the past, a few years ago when I got this lens, the one I'm filming with, the 15-35 lens, I also bought it new and I had to return it twice because it was decentered and the sharpness just wasn't good enough in some of the corners. So with a telelens, the testing will be slightly different. So if you watched the video with the wide angle lens, I had some map of the world on the wall, which I used first of all to test the details. Can't do this with this lens. My apartment is not big enough, I can't get far enough away from such a map, so I'll do the testing a bit different, and also want to show you how I do it, especially the one about seeing if this lens is centered properly and how the corner sharpness is. So that's what we're gonna do in this video. First of all, I want to also show you how big this actually is. For me it was a bit hard to estimate how heavy, big it would be compared to my old lens. So this is a 70-200 lens with the RF adapter. So in terms of the length, this one is just a little, maybe a centimeter longer. So if I put those here, you see there's not too much difference actually, but this one here is much thicker. It weighs 1.5 kilos and this was like 900 grams. That's quite a difference. Also, for this one here, so if I remove the lens hood, first of all, here's some ring which I can use to tighten it. So if I have it tightened, this will be locked in quite firmly, which is good if I transport it so the zoom just doesn't move out. But if I loosen it, you'll now see how long this lens actually is. So it extends quite a bit. So although it's a compact lens, compared to some other pro lenses which cover this range, it's still big. So don't be fooled by looking at some of the pictures. It's heavy, it's big, but also hopefully it will give me the range I need for my photography in the future. So 500 millimeters is quite a bit more than what I had before with the 200 millimeters. Only thing is I lose 30 millimeters at the lower end. So typically I just bring two lenses, so the wide angle lens goes to 35 millimeters, and now I have quite a gap. So I hope at some point either there will be some third-party lenses, fixed primes for 50 millimeters, or Canon will come up with another lens, because currently they just have the premium offering, the 1.2 50 millimeter lens, which is nothing for me, it's too heavy, and then they have this very small pancake lens for like 150 bucks, which in terms of quality is not the right one. So I need something in between, which I would then use to cover the range between the wide angle and the tele one. But yeah, for now I'm excited about it. I want to test it, and I'm going to show you how to do it. Okay, so we're now out in my garden and I want to show you how I test the lens. So it's already mounted here on my tripod. I've currently set it at 100 millimeters, but I'll also test the whole range, so 100, 200, 300 and 500, just to get an impression if the sharpness is always top notch throughout the focal range. Now the question is, what do I photograph? So let me show you. So I don't have a big enough target here, a big enough plane target. So instead what I do, I mounted the cobalt light with the V-mount battery from Moman, which has some text here, so different sizes text. So it's quite some nice details. And I mounted it here, we're maybe 10-12 meters away from the camera, so I won't get any depth of field issues for the test I'm now performing. So first of all, I'll focus or put the cobalt light in the center of the frame. I'm gonna move back now and I show you. And I'm gonna manually focus, so put it properly in focus. Then I take a photo, and you see here, I also have the cable release to avoid any shake. Now, after taking this center photo, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna reposition or move around the camera, and then I put the cobalt light in the different corners. So in total I take 5 photos, and I'll not refocus. That's why it's important that your target is far enough away, otherwise you might get slight depth of field issues, because especially when I'm going to 500 millimeters, depth of field will be very shallow, even with a lens that just supports 7.1 when I'm at 500. So let me quickly show you how I focus. So you see here it's in the center, and yeah, the cobalt light is now here focused. I manually focus it just to be sure it's properly in focus, and then I also leave the focus at manual when I take the other photos. I'm gonna do that now, and I'm also gonna do the same with my old lens just to have some comparison. Okay, so I imported all the photos in Lightroom, and I'll now show you a quick way how to compare them. So for example, this one here, if I press I twice, you see the details. So it's at 100 millimeters, f4.5. So I photographed this series, this test series, always fully open, and I would now zoom in to 100% and then switch to the next photo. And this one here, I would then also position in the middle. So if you do this for all the photos of the series, for example this one, I need to grab it from here. I can then just switch between the photos. There will be a slight delay because I don't have the fastest machine here, but it helps to compare it. And this one. So here you see, starting with the middle, it's quite okay in terms of sharpness. Can also go into 200% if I want, but let's first see, just judging from 100% view, the corners look pretty good, so I don't see much of a drop in sharpness. So maybe for this one, this might be slightly less sharp, but only a touch. So judging just from looking at this 100 millimeter view, I don't see any problem in terms of decentering. For decentering, you typically notice some strange effects where one corner might be much less sharp than the others, or even the complete half of an image. So I don't think it's decentered by just looking at the 100 millimeters, but you should look at the complete range, because sometimes changing the focal length introduces quite some different effects, which I had with the 15-35 lens. So really go through the range. So we're gonna do this. This is now 200 millimeters. You see I'm now much closer zoomed in. I already positioned the images, so I can quickly cycle through them. And this one I need to position. And yeah, what you see, since the target was far enough away, even moving around the camera a bit doesn't introduce any depth of field issues. That's why it's important to do such a test outside, where you can get at least 10 meters away from your target, if you can, maybe even longer. And also you don't need to use something mounted on another tripod. You could also find maybe some house, something in the distance which you use for that. This would also work. Just some target which has some details you can use to compare the sharpness and the resolution. So here I have to also position them properly. Didn't do this yet, so let's also get this one in the middle, and then again cycle through them. So this one pretty sharp, also maybe slightly less, but it's widest aperture for the lens, so usually I'd expect stopping down just a touch already makes it a bit sharper, and I also have a little test for that. But also again, the corners look pretty even, maybe with a slight change here and there, but yeah, nothing drastic. Okay, so I don't want to bore you with the rest, so 300 millimeters, the same. So also going through the motions, putting everything in the center, and then comparing what I already did. So let's now move to the 500 millimeters. Here we are already pretty close. You see how much of a difference this makes to the 100 millimeters. So 5 times the size is quite a difference, and it will also help me when I take landscape photos to get maybe some more abstract shots. So also here for 500 millimeters, same, pretty even distribution of sharpness here. It says 6.7, but that's just because I have half stop increments and it can't display the 7.1, but actually we are at 7.1 here. So my old lens, the 7200, at not completely wide open, but f4.5, which I consider still pretty open. It's pretty detailed here in the center, might even be more sharp than the 100 to 500 here at 100 millimeters. But if we now look at the corners, you see here it's already a drastic difference, or not drastic, but a significant amount of blur here. We go to the top equally, and also to those sides. This is even more out of focus, it seems, or less sharp. And this a bit sharper. So I wouldn't say it's decentered, but for this lens it definitely helps to stop down, which I usually did. So I mostly used it for landscapes. When I shoot landscapes, I'm at least at f9.5 with a zoom lens to get good enough depth of field. And if I shoot wildlife, I usually don't care so much about the corners. So for wildlife, I have the lens as open as possible. There I care about center sharpness, and for this, lenses are all sharp enough, even my old one, which I have for 15 years now. And when I stop down for landscapes, the corners will also be sharp enough. So that's typically the important thing. Wide open for a zoom lens for me needs to be very sharp in the center, but when I stop down, I want to have everything sharp. Okay, let me also show you some other tests I did. Okay, so here I want to show you what stopping down means for the corners. That's taken indoors, some shelves with some books, here 100 millimeters f4.5. And yeah, let's just go to this corner so I can show you. This one here, when I go to f5.6, you'll see a difference. It's already a touch sharper, so not much, but I think you can see it if you look, for example, here at this. So let's go down to this corner here. So this is at f4.5 and now at 5.6. So it's already pretty good at f4.5, but especially if you look at this part here at pocket, then you see that stopping down this lens improves it quite a bit. And also let's look at 128 millimeters, which is the closest I could do indoors. That's also why the other test was performed outdoors. So if we go here, 4.5, so you see that if you look at this part here, also just stopping down one stop or half a stop actually already makes it sharp into the outer corners, which is perfect. Okay, so the final test, I wanted to see how's the bokeh looking and also see what I can shoot with it. So these are not very great images, but it's just an example. So here we have another shot I took f4.5, but if I go to, for example, what I would typically shoot, f8, just want to see the corners. So it's pretty sharp here all around. For this test it was also important to get it very parallel, but you see how detailed it is when I'm shooting at f8, and f9.5 looks equally good. And that's important because those are more of the apertures I'd use for landscape photography. And I did the same here. Here we have f11 because I'm zoomed in even more, so I needed more depth of field. So corners look very sharp. Also here, so very good sharpness, and you see the depth of field is very shallow because I'm very close to this target, and down here also. So it's perfect. But I also wanted to test the macro capabilities of this lens, which I'm surprised are very good, because even at 500 millimeters you can get as close as 1 meter to the target on which you're focusing, and this allows you to create quite shallow depths of field. So I didn't even properly focus, so the focus is here, should have been maybe somewhere else. So next day I got out the tripod and I took this photo here, and you see it's very usable for slight macro photography. So not real macro photography where you get crazy close, but yeah, you can get some nice detail shots, which will be very nice on some landscape photo shoots where you maybe don't have the right sky for the landscape. Maybe you find something interesting in the small which you can photograph. So in terms of depth blur or bokeh, let's check out this photo. So it's not very good, but what I wanted to see, so this was maybe 40 meters away from me, and then this background is 10 more meters away. So you can see how blurry it gets. I mean, it's just 7.1, but at 500 millimeters, I think it's good enough for my use case. So I'm not very ambitious when it comes to wildlife photography. So I'd say it's good enough for me, and I can't afford another lens anyway. So here's also our dog, and yeah, just zooming in. Here we have a very good focus, very good sharpness, and then here the background quite blurry. Also, fun fact, what would you think which ISO? Oh, it's already showing here. So ISO 1600. How clean is this? So I just used the Lightroom air noise reduction at setting 30, and yeah, looks like it was taken at ISO 200. So pretty nice. Which also means that just having 7.1 at the long end, I don't really care in terms of light anymore. Before you could have said, okay, you need to go to a very high ISO to even be able to take photos of wildlife. Then you should get a lens with a much more open aperture. But now with the new Lightroom noise reduction, this is no longer the case, because you can just go to either 1600, 3200, even 6400, and wouldn't say it's a big problem anymore. Okay, so yeah, that's the overview. That's how I test the lens till now. I'll basically keep it. So the 2 weeks initial period are over, in which I could have just returned it. So I'm keeping it now, and at some point I'll do a real review, because for now this was just playing around, not a serious photo shoot yet, especially not a landscape photo shoot. I really need to practice some real landscape photography, and then I can also in some month tell you how I like the lens and if it was a good investment or if I just wasted a big pile of money on it. So hope you found this interesting, found this helpful, and yeah, always make sure to test your lenses, your cameras, every equipment you get early, so you can return it if it's not performing as you want. Okay, see you in the next video. Bye.